it was worth it actually getting the crane, because as soon as I showed the POD video to the guy that directed it, he was like, "Yeah, they've got a crane. We need a crane. Like, you have to get one." I was like, "Okay, yeah, all right, whatever. Let's go."
You're American when you go into the bathroom, and you're American when you come out. But what are you when you're in the bathroom? European. Ah!
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure Podcast. We go all the way from Calgary to Europe and just go full time zone difference here. Really excited to be welcoming on Wilkie Robinson of MALEVOLENCE. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. You're very professional.
Oh, thank you so much. It's I think this has been an ep that we have been planning and talking about for a long, long time. And I think just lining up, obviously any European guest that comes on the show, it's like kind of jumbled to like, we're recording at 10 a.m. and you're like, just kind of closing out your day. Obviously with the new MALEVOLENCE record that just came out, Malicious Intent, I was like, okay, we have to make this happen. So I'm really excited to be sitting down with you, Wilkie, and excited to chat.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I actually listened to this podcast quite a bit in the pandemic because I think a bunch of my friends came on here, or people I knew. Not Loose came on here, right? And like a few of those guys, and then Comeback. You had like the whole of Comeback Kid at one point.
Yeah, I am two members away from having all of Comeback Kid on this podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
And like as someone that grew up in Winnipeg, where that band is originally from, it's like those are just talking to hometown heroes of mine, and now I'm just like friends with half the band. So I would anticipate that they are the first band that I have every single member, but there are a couple other bands where I have like 2 or 3 episodes from one band. So
I could definitely tell that you were a fan of Comeback Kid from the
oh my god, was it too obvious? I don't know. Wilkie, before we get into the music chats of this episode, it's a tradition and a must to do a bev check. So I'm kind of curious of what you're going to be drinking because it's at different times of the day for us. So tell me what you're going to be drinking for the episode.
Okay. Honestly, I'm just drinking black coffee now from a cafetiere. I know it's not super exciting. I'm aware that this is a part of the show that you check the bevs, but I'm in our studio right now and we've been away for about 2 weeks. So like I would normally have some milk in there, but all of the milk and milk alternatives we have in the fridge are all smell really bad. So I just threw them all in a bit.
Even the milk alternatives have gone bad.
Yeah.
Do you want to showcase the mug? I was trying to gauge what that was.
You know what, actually? This mug says Manchester Christmas Market 2017.
They're back.
Yeah, so I think these are all the leftover mugs from our houses that no one wanted. We just came and dropped off in the kitchen here.
I feel that. It's I don't know what it is about just like randomly using like Christmas like tea towels or like little napkins that you got around the holidays, and you're like, I just need to use this. Or I've gone down to the very last pair of socks in my drawer, and it's like my Christmas socks. I'm like, this feels weird wearing it in June, but we're just gonna roll with it. But I like that you just have the Christmas mug from 2017 of all places, at all times. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
What's that?
Why not?
Why not? Exactly. So I'm going to be drinking a Liquid Death. It's, just the start of the day. I need to just pound through some hydration. So I'm sure that this probably hasn't hit anywhere where you're at yet.
No, I haven't seen it physically here, but I've seen it online because of the super metal looking branding of sparkling water, right?
Yeah, so there's regular sparkling water, and then there's like the white can's just the still water. So this is just drinking like a glass of water, but in the coolest way possible, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah. I think I listened to the guy that runs it on Talk on a podcast a few years ago, and it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had Styx on, and ever since then, it's like everyone thinks that I'm like sponsored by them, but like when it's official, like I'm gonna be screaming it from the mountaintops. But in the meantime, it's like, they'll send me a pallet here and there and they'll hook it up. So, it's for me, any beverage sponsor that I would want for the show, that's the hero one, and I'm willing to go through the chase of like trying to work there. So, it's just one can at a time. One can at a time towards the sponsorship.
I like sparkling water. I'm a big fan, but I've only just got into it really. Because I know it's quite controversial for a water. Really, a lot of people like really, really, really don't like it.
I do think that a lot of people, myself included, this is the Bev talk that like I always will just extend as long as possible for an episode. But like I feel that like growing up, I didn't drink any pops or anything because of the fizziness. I hated how it tasted in my mouth. And then like it just took sparkling water to be like, oh, I get it now. And I still don't really like pop, just more on like not the fizziness, but more on like it's just like sugar and syrup and just like I can get my fix for that somewhere else. But dude, I'm big on the sparkling water, and I think some people just need some guiding off of like what to try out first. And like I always say with the Liquid Death, like their sparkling version is not as carbonated, so it's like easier to drink at once versus like you have one sip of a bubbly and you feel like your mouth's on fire.
Yeah. I don't actually drink any soft drinks at all. They're just too sweet for me. And in the USA, it's particularly crazy. Like, there's different regulations there as there is here.
Right.
So like I think like the Mountain Dew that you guys have would be like illegal here because of the sugar and syrup and all that shit.
Yeah, it's pretty funny going down there sometimes and you order a small and it's like truck stop size at times. You're like, what? Do you have like an extra small? Because I just need like this little amount. Does Europe have like any crazy sparkling water exclusive stuff that I would not be aware of?
Honestly, I don't think so. There's like San Pellegrino, that one. That's like the main brand. That's like the one you'd have in a restaurant.
Gotcha.
Other than that, no, I think we're quite regular with the sparkling water. I know Germany, they absolutely love it. Like it's more popular than regular, like still water there, which is quite interesting.
So I'll have to do some research on German sparkling water and see if there's any brands that I haven't tried yet. But Wilkie, cheers to you, my guy. Really excited to do this podcast.
Yeah, let's go.
So, Wilkie, any new guest that comes on the show, I like to get a little bit of history about the person, how they got put on the path of heavy music. Obviously, that's going to help us transition into Malevolence. But tell me about like the first times you were hearing like breakdowns, screaming, however you want to spit it.
Okay. So I was already playing in a metal band when I heard breakdowns, and I remember seeing like hardcore dancing for the first time. And at the time I was like 13 or something, and I was like a real metal dude, and I was like, what is this? They have fringes, they have tight jeans. Like this isn't like the deathcore, metalcore era, mid 2000s. But honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm like flexing, but like myself and the rest of my band members, we were into heavy music like really, really, really young, like in a way that's a little bit weird, I think. I know this is probably a really generic story, but our guitarist at the time, by the way, we were playing in Malevolence from being like 11 years old.
Right.
So our guitarist at the time, he had an older brother who was really, really into metal, and he was showing us like technical death metal, like really, really extreme stuff at like 12 and 13. Which, I look back on it now, and I do think it's really weird for a kid that age to be into that kind of music. So screaming vocals, like harsh vocals, was probably Slipknot, I would have thought. There was a library where I lived, and you could rent CDs for like 50 pence, and we would take them and then put them in like your mom's computer and take all the tracks, and then you could burn them onto another disc. So I remember, I think
you were renting, and then you're just
we were renting, and we were pirating them. So this is I will have been maybe 12 or 11. In fact, no, screaming vocals younger, because I had a Linkin Park hoodie when I was like 10 years old or something.
Okay.
So yeah, it was all that kind of stuff. I couldn't tell you screaming vocals. I could tell hardcore dancing was definitely some bands that were like in my school that were a little bit older than me. And we played a show with them, and I saw people like two-stepping and windmilling, and I thought it was so lame actually at the time. Yeah. What were the others? Just screaming vocals.
Yeah,
dancing.
well, anything as far as, you know, what is considered heavy music. But I think that there's a lot to unpack for sure. I think the one thing that's really, really interesting is like having any time you're like that young and you're like, so like the world is your oyster, and then it's like you hear Job for a Cowboy or fucking Amir or Slipknot for the first time, you're like, people can make this music. And you know, you might only be starting with like Linkin Park, which in my opinion is like, you know, super foundational for me. I think one of the best bands of all time. But that band, like on a guitar side, is like total opposite than like any of those bands that I listed before. So all it takes is like almost having a super like going like head first into the deep end versus like, oh, let's go to the shallow end with like the alternative new metal stuff or metal stuff, and then work our way down. It's like sometimes you just need someone to just like plummet you, and then either you're gonna like desperately try to swim to the top and like I'm never going there again, or you're like, okay, I want to stay here forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first introduction to like rock was Nickelback.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. So that's a local band as far as Calgary is concerned.
Canadian, right? Yeah. And I was quite aware from hearing Nickelback and like seeing like the long hair and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, that's who I am. That's what I want to be. And I think like you have to be at that age to have that like identity drive. You just like want to be part of something and part of a scene. And then I was really, really obsessed from very young. But absolutely, there's certainly stepping stones that you need to take before you dive straight into Job for a Cowboy, because you show that to a person that hasn't heard like Linkin Park and Slipknot, and then I don't know, maybe taking a step further and look to Hatebreed or something. They're going to be like, what the fuck is this? So I'm grateful for the journey I had, really. And then now I think there was a long time where these bands like Slipknot and Linkin Park, they were like, you know, people that have like quote unquote good taste, right, in heavy music would never dare say that like Linkin Park was cool. And now like people just don't give a shit. It's like, everyone fucking loves Linkin Park. Everyone loves Limp Bizkit. Everyone loves Slipknot. Like that was the gateway band for anyone like roughly our age and older and younger, I would say. So.
Well, that's a pretty interesting thing, and this is going to be stuff that I think comes up a little later in the interview, but I think Malevolence has been one of those bands where maybe at the beginning there was like a lot of people where it was polarizing. There was people that either like loved the shit out of you guys, or people that were like, what the fuck is with all this singing and, you know, Pantera-esque stuff. But I think bands who like stay in their lane and they do their shit and they do their shit well, there's like an overnight thing where like there are those naysayers, and then it's like everyone likes that band now. You know, it's like, you know, it happened with American Nightmare, it happened with Turnstile. There's like so many of those like switches of like, oh yeah, everyone loves this. And then some of the people in those bands are like, I remember you 5 years ago talking shit on us, you know, like either in person or whatever. So that's something that we can get later, but I think that's a good comparison to, like you were saying, some of those bands where it's like tastemakers, and then they're like, oh shit, I have to get on board with this because literally everyone fucks with this band now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so that I feel like an interesting piece that I didn't know is like Malevolence started like when you guys like were literal like infants and babies. So so like obviously I feel like, you know, there's lots of people who are starting their bands in like their preteens or their teenage years or their couple of years in high school, depending, you know, some people are a little late to the game. But like, tell me about like, obviously you're not starting this band at 11 or 12 years old being like, we're going to be taking over Europe. Tell me about like the original beginnings of the band, and then like how things started to be like, oh, this is something that we can actually do. I'm sure that came a lot later.
Yeah, so Charlie, who is our drummer, who's still in the band now, we were in primary school together, which I guess all your audience is American. So that is 0 to, oh no, not 0. That's 5 years old to 10 years old.
Straight out the womb into school.
Straight out the womb. Yeah, sorry, that's 5 years old to 10 years old. So you leave like 10 or 11, and the later years of being in primary school, we were both, as I mentioned, getting the CDs from the library, and we were into like Slipknot and Linkin Park, so on.
Right.
And we, I guess, like we got hold of guitars in the school, and we actually did our first show in like the assembly, you know, like the last day of school, primary school when you're 10, and they're like, yeah, we're all gonna like say goodbye to one another. We were like, yeah, we've got a band, let us play. And we played 2 songs. One was Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's just like the last song I would expect Malevolence as I know it to cover. But again, this is like such a infant version of the band.
We were like 10 years old. So we played that, and we played obviously Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, which are like, these are like the first bit. Yeah, you know, if you pick up a guitar and you're like, I want to.
Were you playing Smells Like Teen Spirit in like a gymnasium assembly kind of place?
Yeah, we were playing like the school hall. Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
like
that's very on brand for that music video of that song as well. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I can't really remember. I can't really remember the show, but I remember it like everyone was like sat down and shit. Anyway, so we had a band going from really, really, really young, and we honestly have just never stopped from then until now. So we got another dude in when we were like 12, and he was like actually into real metal, and he had this is the guy with the older brother, he's called Matt Borrowdale, and he showed us like Trivium, Sepultura, Chimera. Like we were really into like the Roadrunner style mid 2000s metal. So yeah, Hatebreed, Chimera, Pantera, Sepultura, Trivium, Slayer, all this kind of stuff. So we first played like in a music venue when we were like 13, and I think there's videos of that actually in our latest music video, Still Waters Run Deep. There's clips of it which we put together. Oh,
that's really cool. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because we wanted to like make a music video that sort of showed our history from then until now. So we were like, I had dreadlocks at this point, by the way. So in that show, we covered Hatebreed, we covered Chaos AD by Sepultura, we covered Chimera, Power Trip, probably like a couple of our own songs, which were like pretty shit, but actually good for our age at the time, I think. So yeah, we were just doing it from that point. And then we met, we were playing like local shows with kids in other bands. And we met another band called Decimate, which is Con and Josh, who are the 2 guitarists in Malevolence now. We met them and sort of just joined forces. Then Alex, who is our current vocalist, he was also in our school, and he joined in 2009. So yeah, 13 years ago. Wow. Then 2012, we did our first ever tour.
Cool. So yeah, I think one thing. So was the band, even with the high school 2-song assembly performance, was it always called Malevolence, or were we just like we're just a band?
Actually, we were called Malevolence then. Yeah, yeah.
That's we're so like, crazy.
Yeah.
What's up? We're Malevolence. This song's called Teen Spirit. Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh, no. Sorry. When we were playing Nirvana, we weren't called Malevolence.
Okay.
When we were playing like the real metal shit, when we decided we wanted to be like a real metal band.
What did you call yourself when you were doing like those 2 covers?
I don't know what we called
ourselves. I like the timeline of you guys being called Malevolence since day one, even when you were covering Nirvana.
Yeah, I think that we were like, we were kids, so we probably changed our name every week.
Totally. You're like, I totally remember those early bands for me where it's like, what if we were called this? And then what if we were called... And it's like, nowadays, it's like, that is almost like detrimental to a band. Like if you were doing a name change like super late in the game, and it's like, whoa, but yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, so the full band kind of comes together in like the early 2010s, it sounds like, with the lineup that it is now. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit, like as far as like the history wise. So like you guys have put out, I guess it's 3 records and 1 EP.
1 EP, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so like since you guys started touring in 2012, like this goes back to maybe my original question of like, at what like was it always out the gate that you guys were like, we want to do as much as we can, we want to like do this, or was it just like we just want to have fun and play some shows, and then it became like, oh, I think there's more that we can do here?
I think we always wanted to play as much as we could and like take it as far as we possibly could. Now, I didn't like realize that the ceiling was as high as like the things we have achieved now, because like it seems like the stuff we get to do at the moment is still like quite surreal to me. But I think in around 2011, we did an EP release show for an EP that was never actually released because we were super disorganized. However, like I think we sold like 300 tickets in Sheffield at the time. And like, that was the point where we were like, oh, wow, like there's people that don't even know us. Like, you know, people we don't know personally, like come into our show and like moshing and stuff like that. And yeah, we have always wanted to be a real band. Like, I know obviously vast majority of people in the hardcore scene, like that's an alien concept to them, but we always wanted to be like a real band and play and tour all the time.
Right.
I mean, it was never like, yeah, let's be like rock stars, but there was nothing more fun to than going and just like playing a show in a different city and meeting people and, you know, drinking some beers. And that was like all I wanted to do, all I cared about. And, you know, probably still now, to be honest, my whole 20s. So, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's I think the thing that I really like that you said is that like not realizing the like it's kind of like a glass ceiling and you just kept like busting through each layer of that. And I think that's something that's really interesting with bands that are really in the conversation right now, is like a lot of the time that they have the goals that they have are just like, yeah, we would like to do this. And then it's like, if the product is really good and the band's on point, it can just like go further and further. And I'm sure there's like, someone could be listening to this in like 3 years time. And it's like, you guys have done even crazier things than, you know, what's happening in 2022. So I think that's like really interesting of like not setting your expectations like at like through the roof, but knowing that like, if you just like be consistent, you write good music, you're authentic, you could like really go places that you never thought were even possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think even 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't anticipate that where we would be at where we are now. You know, like I look at we just did an arena tour, right? The venues were like 15,000 capacity every night, and like even my favorite bands in the world, like my idols growing up, they don't play venues like that. So like to me, that's like, yeah, it's really, really strange. And I'm really, really grateful for like any opportunity that comes our way, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I say, my goal, you know, there's never really been a clear goal. Like we want to be here, we want to be there. But it's just always been keep grinding, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep grinding, see where it takes us. Yeah.
Yeah. I think chasing the curiosities of how things grow, like, you know, as far as the band that I play in, like we're nowhere near at the level that you guys are, but like, again, it really started as a way of like, I just want to play some local shows. And now it's like, now there's conversations of going over to Europe. Now there's conversations of doing like tours that connect from different festivals that were offered. So it's like, I think when you're in the mix of that, it can feel like overwhelming and daunting. But I think to your point, I think you just have to be like, okay, what has been the thing that has got me to this point? And a lot of it is just like the creativity, the hard work, the process of, and just like focusing on that versus feeling like you have to play, you know, hardcore or metalcore chess, however you want to say it, as far as like, oh, messaging these people. It's like, no, just if you put out good music, like the right people will come to you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about like the momentum of the band, because I feel like you guys recently in the last few years have just been like shooting to the moon. But in I was listening to the Downbeat podcast that you were on with Josh, and just talking about like there was like a bit of like not like growing pains, but just struggling at the beginning to like get your music out and for people to like it, because it wasn't like, I feel like right out the gate you guys kind of, you know, were doing kind of the beatdown stuff, but it had that like Pantera metal stuff, it had the singing. And that, I think, because when you do something so creative out the get-go, it can be a lot harder to like latch on to people versus like, we're doing this sound that's like super popular right now, and then fans can just like spark up. So talk to me about the momentum and how you guys like really stuck it out.
So yeah, it's quite strange actually, because we like I say, we have been touring now for 10 years, and for a band to have the momentum we have now, I feel at this point in their trajectory does seem quite rare. Like I don't want to sound like I'm floating my own boat too much or anything. So we started touring 2012, and we played lots and lots and lots of shows to absolutely no one.
Right.
And everywhere. Like and I'll be honest, we still do play shows, really, really small shows still now. Like when we go to places where we aren't known, but it never felt like it was never like, yeah, we're gonna go out here and we're gonna grind it because we want to grow. We just played those shows because we wanted to play them, and if there wasn't anyone there, then whatever. We're gonna have a good time anyway. So people took a while to take notice to our sound. I think at the beginning we did play a lot in the hardcore and beatdown scene, like a lot, and that was never a conscious move. It was just because that was the people that was booking us, and we had heavy beatdowns, and beatdown kids just want to smash each other to them, and like people liked us there, and I like beatdown. So I was like involved in that scene, and I knew people. Same with the hardcore, like we all knew people in the hardcore scene, so that was just where we got booked. Now recently, like I'd say just the past 2 years, like the crowd has shifted to like quite a lot more metal, and we started doing them. Well, we always did metal festivals. We started doing much more of them, and getting better slots and things like that, which is really strange because people are telling me like that have just heard of us, that like literally live in the same area, like, oh yeah, like this, you guys are amazing, can't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, like we've been playing these same songs for 7-8 years, and they're metal. So the metal songs, like even if I don't know if you listen to our first album, but if you listen to our first album or all of our albums, they are just metal records, really. They have absolute hardcore influence. They have beatdown influence. So yeah, maybe some of that like difficulty at first, like people didn't like the way we looked. Like we used to get a lot of like hate on the comments, like never really in real life. But I remember like our first record came out on like a subsidiary of Century Media, that label. Yep. And we were on their YouTube channel, and like I don't know if you've seen any of our videos, but we always like in fact, I've seen your band's video. It's kind of the same vibe, there's like the NYHC and the rap influence. Yeah, I mean, like you're charging around the streets, giving it all of this, right. And yeah, I've seen,
but I feel like the difference between my music videos and yours is like you guys are renting fancy ass cars and like doing like the fucking butterfly doors, which I'm about.
Yeah. We've done that once, and like we're just having fun with it, really. But like we're all more influenced by watching rap music videos and stuff like that. It's very rare I see a metal video and I'm like, yo, that was insane. Right. But yeah, so we always had like that element to our visuals, and also like the way we looked and the attitude we gave was also like quite UK. You know what I mean? It was very British. I can sense that in the brand, and people were like a bit resistant to it, like calling us chavs and shit like that, which like I'm not sure if you or your American audience will understand, but it's like
I've never heard that word before, so I don't know.
You've never heard the word chav, right? Okay, yeah, people used to call us like chavcore and shit like that. So it's like you might want to Google it, or anyone listening Google it, but it's like maybe like a hooligan, or like a or I don't know, maybe people use the term like white trash or something in the USA. So it's like that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Okay, I'm piecing it together.
I don't want to offend anyone, but yeah, or like people used to call us that in like the metal scene because we don't all have like long hair and and stuff like that. So
I think it's so interesting that you guys are getting like hate because of how you look, when like I look at your guys' Instagram nowadays, I'm like, man, this is the most like dripped out band that I've ever seen. You guys look super fly.
Thank you. Yeah, you know what? No one says that shit anymore. Like it's all really positive, and I think that the metal scene or metalcore or whatever in general now is just like so much more accepting of people like looking and sounding a different way, like a million times from. Yeah, when I started, like when I got into this music, I remember like where when like people were like in the death metal scene were like hostile to people just for having a fringe or like having tight jeans and you know what I mean, and that kind of vibe. Or even people in the hardcore scene when I got into hardcore were like really elitist against like people from metalcore, where like obviously now it's like, you know, no one gives a shit about anything like that anymore,
right,
whatsoever. So yeah, we've come a long way. No one hates the way we look anymore. They've just accepted it,
right.
and I don't think, to be honest, I don't think the way we look is even like much of a talking point. Like most of the festivals we played 2 days ago in Poland. I walked out of our dressing room, there's 25 people in like tribal face paint, like wearing antlers, like, you know, like a deer.
Sure.
And then they're like, I went in to watch the set and they're doing like this throat singing, like,
Sure.
And I was thinking, people make fun of the way we look, and you go to metal festivals and there's people dressed up like fucking deers. Like, so, yeah, I never really understood it, to be honest. Like that's more, in my opinion, more of a target to have fun made out of you if you dress like a deer than if you just want to wear a puffer jacket in a music video. Or whatever.
But I do think, first off, Jordan, please mark that because I want to use that as the intro to this podcast. But second, I think it is very interesting that like the conversation around fashion and music has always been there. But I think bands who really like push against norms or different things like that. Yeah. Like I remember when I was first getting into heavy music in general, like me finding out about August Burns Red because so many people were like, who are these Aeropostale flip-flop motherfuckers like playing like this technical breakdown music? And I thought it was just super cool that like this band that was writing a certain kind of music didn't have super long hair, didn't have like fucking chains and all this stuff. Yeah. And like I feel like there are bands that have that fashion aesthetic that play nu metal music, they play speed metal, they do hardcore. Like there's not a one size fits all, it feels like, anymore, which I think is really, really awesome. But I do also think that I don't think that anyone can deny that music as a creative outlet and fashion as an outlet there is a ton of connection between those two entities for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, yeah. I'm much happier now. People are more accepting. It's way better than it was before. So much less negativity. And yeah, I mean, I think you come from the hardcore scene, right? Like people in the hardcore scene, they are more into fashion than people in the metal world of metal, right? Like
totally. People are like so obsessed with like their vintage Metallica shirt than like their $10 Gildan shirt with like just the band print at this point, you know? But again, I think it's, you know, we're having some fun here, but I do think that it is like, like sometimes when you go and see a band live and they fucking kill it, and then you go to their merch spread and there's a disconnect there, and you're like, oh, like I want to support this band because they're on tour or whatever, but it's like, I will never wear any of these shirts. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have been like, I've been in that situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that way quite a lot, to be honest with you. But merch, like your merch designs are insanely important for your career to happen, you know, or even just touring or people for your project to grow, I think now.
Yeah. So like that's a perfect segue into one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. And we're going to get into some of the more current stuff that's been happening. But like you are kind of the brains of the Malevolence merch machine. So like talk to me about like when you guys made that decision to have it as like almost like its own entity outside of the band versus like, oh, here's just our merch link.
Yeah, so I do all the designs myself. In fact, I've just started hiring a couple of other people because I can't keep on top of doing so much, because we release a lot of merch. So that kind of started with when we went independent for a short. Well, we still kind of are independent, but we went independent label wise for a short while because we weren't really getting the offers we wanted from labels. So we were like, yeah, let's just like release our own music. So we set up our own store, and we have a warehouse which I'm in right now. Could give you a little tour if you like. Yeah, right please. Now I'm in the street. we're in the studio. It's a bit of a mess because we just got back from Poland last night. We have a little kitchen right here.
Oh, nice.
And then we have a warehouse downstairs, and we have a practice room underneath here, which none of our equipment is set up.
It's been so long since I've had a mobile podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm actually holding my laptop right now. Then.
Oh, no, he's committed.
Yeah. Now we have a warehouse space here where you can see all our merchandise, and we actually fulfill it. Like, we send all the orders out and shit.
That's Malevolence HQ right there.
Yeah, this is Malevolence HQ, which was like, which is a lockdown project actually, because we couldn't tour and we couldn't play shows and shit, and we started selling. Well, it was too much for us to handle from like our previous space, the orders when we released our EP, The Other Side. So we got a bigger space, and when we moved in here, like, this was completely fucked. It was like, this is a toilet actually we're in right now, and we literally I say we can't.
The studio was a toilet originally. It was
like where I am right now. Like, and when we moved in, it was a toilet, and we pulled the urinals off the walls, plastered the walls, fitted the kitchen. We have a vocal booth here fitted. I mean, I say awesome. We did it. Yeah, it was our guitar player, is quite a skilled tradesman, the guy that sings. So he like oversaw the project. We like ran around after him. You know
like,
what I mean?
What can I help out with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know how to do any of that shit. I tried plastering, but it's quite difficult. Yeah, so
were you a part of demo? That I feel like that, as someone that has no experience with like doing trades or anything, the only thing that I would be personally interested is just like taking a sledgehammer to anything. So did you guys get to do that at the very least?
Demolition, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard that abbreviated before. Demo. Yeah, so I've got some great videos of like people taking sledgehammers to sinks and shit like that on the wall. I'm not sure. I don't think we put any like real walls through. Maybe a couple of them here, but like that was that's like outside of
no
like
Family Guy Kool-Aid Man like running through the walls like, oh yeah, or anything like that.
Nah, nothing like that. Yeah, so sorry, back to merchandise.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so we worked really hard on it. It was like a lifeline for us during the pandemic. So like we put out loads, and like if anyone's listening that buys it, thank you very much. But yeah, I do all the designs myself, and I think you just have to take it seriously now, because it's almost like if I go to a show, we're on tour or anywhere, I go to a show and I see a name on the back of loads of shirts, and it clicks in my head like, okay, these guys are popular and people like them, and this is the band in this area. Mm-hmm. So that's like, actually, I'd say like one of my main ways of like understanding like what bands are popular where and so on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like if you're, again, I think it's I think that the multi-complex aspect of a band, like everything needs to have harmony and rhythm between one another. Like it's anything from like the band's name to matching like the name to the logo to the music to the marketing to the merch. Like everything needs to actually connect. And I feel like if one piece is like just off even by a little, it could be detrimental to the band. So I think that like being ultra aware of like the umbrella of your band from a creative aspect is super important. Have you always been someone that's like, you were the merch person since like, you know, you guys were starting in 2012, or was this something that you had to like learn and hone over time?
I think we just did it. I've done it for as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm. Now, like for many years, it was just absolutely terrible. And like I did it myself mainly because we either didn't have the money or we just didn't want to pay anyone else to do it.
Sure.
And that is like, we have always had quite a DIY ethic in our band, and that was never for like punk points. It was just purely because we're like tight and we don't want to pay people to do anything.
Right.
Or we didn't want to pay, our attitude was always like, oh, why would we like pay someone like when we could just try our best to make it happen ourselves. Now, I started taking it a lot more seriously about 2-3 years ago now. And I do work for other bands and stuff as well, like design work. And I could only really start calling myself like a graphic designer, like in the last, 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do a bunch of bands, like hardcore bands, a lot of like deathcore and stuff like that. Generally like towards like the more like novelty side of things, which does seem to be quite popular. Like I've done a lot of merch for, Tsunami.
Yep. Good friends of
So
the pod.
oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, I've just done a bunch of merch for
They're over where you're at right now.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did the tour merch, and it was like one of my favorite merch jobs I've ever had, because I don't actually know them in real life. Like the guys have just spoke online, and they were like, "Yeah," I was saying, "Hey, like, what do you want?" Like on the tour shirts, and they're like, "Yeah, we want us, but like in a ball of flames, with like the new Tesla Cybertruck on the front." And I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
Say less.
And then I think I did another one for them. I'm not sure if they're using it or not, but it's got a weed leaf on it, like holding two guns, and then it says like "real basic" or something. Yeah, I like.
That's a very Benny shirt for sure.
Yeah, that was from him actually. That one. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and brilliant to work with actually.
Yeah. So maybe from, I think it really sounds like you've paid your dues a lot as someone who does merch in the band and then a designer, and like you said, you're only now calling yourself like a graphic designer.
Yeah.
You're working with other bands, which is kind of the opposite for a lot of people. They like take one Photoshop course online, then they put graphic designer in their bio and they start doing that, and it's more of a I think the term "fake it till you make it," while it is gross in my opinion, at most times, there is like an element where you gotta like, keep on doing stuff. Is there someone else in the Malevolence HQ that you just waved to?
Someone has just walked past actually, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, so I mean, I have like major imposter syndrome with all the design stuff, and I know that that's quite a common theme with graphic design people. Mine is mainly because, like I say, I have literally like zero like formal education. I just like torrented Photoshop when I was 14 or whatever.
Sure.
And have messed around with it. And then it was only, like I say, 2-3 years ago where I never put myself out there, and still like I don't do it so much, but people just started hitting me up like, "Hey, are you the guy that does all this stuff? Oh, my band needs XYZ, or like this, I need this for my website, or merch stores and things like that started hitting me up." So that's just sort of where it came from, and that's what sort of gave me the confidence to give myself that title, which
right.
I still feel a little bit funny about it now, but
right,
whatever.
But I do think like I'm a firm believer. Like I did a little bit of schooling for the shit that I do from like marketing and creative stuff. I have learned like heaps more when it comes to just like the actual experience of actually doing it and failing and like fucking something up so much that I'm like, I can't put it back together in the edit and have to reshoot it or have to do that. That has like, those lessons have taught me way more than me sitting in the classroom for 8 hours learning, where certain things are. I'm not here to say that like formal education for creative stuff isn't the pathway for some people, but I feel like for these specific things, you actually just need to like hit the ground running and get your hands dirty, and then like learn in the trenches as you're like growing. Because it's the same thing for me. I don't have a formal education when it comes to playing guitar. I don't have a formal education in doing a podcast or making videos. It's all just been like, just built from the ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exactly the same. I learned so much more than just doing it in every aspect. But yeah, there's sometimes where like I learn something and I'm like, what? That is just made everything so much easier. I wish I'd just gone to school. Someone could have told me that like 2 years ago, and I would have saved so much time. Like I still have those moments when I feel like it makes me feel like I know nothing. But I have to convince myself. I'm like, no, Wilkie, you've done this design for this person, and they've sold fucking loads of them, and it's been a real big success for their brand. Like you are a real designer, whatever. But I don't know. I try not to think about it too much.
I feel like we're always our own worst critic, and we're like, oh, I should be here, but it's like you're exactly where you need to be, and you just have to keep like advancing every day. What's like what's the biggest lesson you've learned with all the merch stuff that you've done? And that could either be like a technical thing that you've learned or something that is a little bit more personal about yourself and how you're built.
I think like just don't be afraid to take risks. with the merch stuff. That's a big thing for me. Then also like not to get beat up when things don't work, because
can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sorry, so like, yeah, a lot of our shit, like, I don't know if you see it, like, is kind of silly. Like, a lot of the designs I do are really fucking like the ridiculous, but often they're the ones that will like by far do the best. You know, as opposed to like something which isn't a risk at all. Like, you know, if we print our album artwork and Malevolence across the front of a shirt, it's like all people will always buy it. You know, but it's never gonna. But also at the same time, you're not going to have that like insane fucking hype that you would doing something like a little bit more silly. So a lot of the stuff
like
that
the
I've
Matrix shirt that you guys have put out recently.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we did one at Halloween and it had like the Scream thing, you know, it looked like a movie poster and it had like the Scream guy on it. And like, I made that one. I didn't like it at all. And I was showing it to the guys. I was like, yeah, I think it's like a little bit corny. They're like, oh yeah, you know, just do it. Just like, let's just put it out anyway. And then that was like our biggest one, you know, our biggest design for months and months and months. So yeah, learn to like take risks a little bit more, because that is really what pays off for us. And then also like if you do something and you put a bunch of work in and then it doesn't go good, just like don't, you know, just you got to take the fucking lows with the highs. I mean, it's the same with it's the same with running any business. Like it's the same with playing shows. Sometimes ones you think are going to be amazing, shit. Sometimes like the shit ones turn out to be absolutely amazing. You just got to like take the low with the high. And as long as like at the end of the period, you can look back and think, oh, it was good, you know, in the long term, then, you know, you should be happy rather than, you know, there's been times, you know, like particularly with merchandise, you put like loads of effort into like a range, or it couldn't be like a tour, and then it just completely flops and you're like, no, my life's over. But
but I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like, I think a lot of merch, there's always merch that bands of any genre will print, and yeah, people will buy it because it's the black shirt with the little pocket design and then something on a live shot on the back. It's like probably the most common heavy music shirt ever made. But I do think that bands who do high risk, high reward kind of shirt, like, again, there's risk involved. There might be people who are like, what, you took this movie and you put it on a poster, like, or what is that? But I do think that, like you said, you weren't sure about it. The band's like, you know, let's put it out and see what happens. And it was your biggest thing. And I think that's the thing that's kind of like the part two to what I was saying earlier, is that like staying in your lane and doing, just like keep, you know, focusing on your creative and putting it out there to kind of show your growth, but also like get feedback, because I feel like feedback is something that a lot of people in creative like really stress about. And like the minute that they get any negative feedback, they plummet and they crush, versus like, okay, let me look at this unemotionally for a second and then like actually be like, oh, this person does have a point. Okay, I'm going to look at that a little bit differently. You know, some feedback or criticism comments, you're just like, okay, this is totally out to lunch, you know, I'll just like leave it. But I feel like the process of doing that builds up that mental strength, because the initial thing, the first thing that you put out as a creative, it feels detrimental when people don't like it. I've put out almost like 200 podcasts, and now I don't give a fuck if people love it or hate it. I'm just about the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think it's really, really scary. Like anyone doing anything, whether if you're in a band or if you're making art, or like even yourself doing a podcast, like I would personally find it really scary to be like, yeah, I'm launching a podcast tomorrow. Like I'm going to try and get some guests on. Who's going to listen? And then, you know, your first episode is going to come out. 2 people are going to listen to it. And you're going to think, oh, like I'm a fucking idiot. No one cares. And, you know, so I think putting yourself out there creatively in any manner is quite scary. Now, like, I know like people from the hardcore scene, maybe the people that listen to this podcast probably think that's really corny for me to say that, because like, I know that, you know, within our world, like success is like besides the point. Like, you know, you never made Scoped Exposure to like be like, yeah, I'm going to be fucking the metalcore Joe Rogan, you know what I mean? You can do hardcore Joe Rogan, like, you know what I mean? You're doing it.
I'm looking to dethrone Joe Rogan. I don't want to sit beside him.
exactly. You know, it's a passion project, and like ultimately,
Totally.
so is like everything I do. You know what I mean? Everything, Malevolence, the merch. Ultimately, it's a passion project, same as this podcast. So like wanting success sometimes feels kind of corny, but then if no one cares, it is also, I don't know, maybe I would find it a little bit embarrassing, but
The
whatever.
level,
You know,
yeah. I think like if you have no success with a podcast and you've done like over 100 episodes, then it's like unless you're like a super person and you're like, I'm only doing this for me, and then like
Good
more
for
power
you.
to you. But I do think that some people need a little bit of a boost with it's the same as a band. It's like it's fine if your same group of 40 friends are always coming to the local shows you guys are playing. But like you said, like it becomes surreal when you're like, we're playing to hundreds of people that I might only know 5% of who are here, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like, it's the same thing with this podcast. I think I feel like I didn't really figure out the rhythm and where I wanted to go with it until I was like at episode 70 or 80. But, it took those first, 70 episodes to like, talk with my friends, like learn my practice, learn like what questions I should ask, what ones I should avoid. But yeah, I think it's like you have to fucking show up and do it. If you want like the level of what you and I are doing with whether it's like a huge merch operation or a big podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And often it's like you say, it took you those 70 episodes to actually develop into the, where you want, who you are now with it. And yeah, man, you're good. Like you're good at speaking. You're better than me. I'm still like,
no.
I'm still quite used to like talking in this way, like in where people actually watch and, it being smooth. And I'm still learning myself actually. So like, this album cycle we've done, well, I've had to do, I think maybe 6 or 7 like interview things. So like now I feel like I'm quite warmed up, but that one I did the downbeat.
Yeah. Shout out to
like
Craig.
Shout out to Craig. Yeah. You know what? His podcast is sick, but I wasn't like warmed up and I was like nervous before going on because I know like a bunch of people listening to it. And I just didn't really think, I wasn't confident at speaking at that point, but I'm a little bit better now.
Yeah. Well, as far as being this far into the episode, you're killing it.
Okay,
did want to talk about some of the music videos. We hit on the self-supremacy, fancy car kind of vibe, which I think that was one of the first songs I heard from you guys, and I was like, what is this band with this like crazy guitar intro and then the whole thing. One thing that I want to ask as far as the music video on Broken Glass, it was like a super DIY operation, and there was a video circulating online because it was right on the train tracks, and there was like a train that had stopped like mid recording a take or whatever. So can you talk to me about like, tell me about the whole operation of like putting that, shoot or show or however you want to, whatever it was, and then like let's get into the actual meme of it. But tell me about it.
So we always had in mind we wanted to do a music video like that. Like I know that style of video is like quite cliche, like particularly in the early 2000s, like new metal era, like the block party kind of, there's just a band playing on a stage vibe. Like I know it has been done to death. And like I don't care because I'm a fan of that style of video. So we were like, we're going to do our own version of it. I think the reference we showed a video guy was POD Southtown. I don't know if you're aware of that video, but
Big
anyone
POD.
go.
I almost wore my POD shirt for this podcast. I kind of regret not doing that.
So that if you're listening to this, go and watch the POD Southtown video and then go and watch the On Broken Glass video. And that was the reference. So we had that one in mind, and I actually put that video together. So I found that we found a yard just like in an old factory that were allowing people to host events and had like a mobile bar, and we hired a stage. So we actually had the stage built for that. And then I think we sold like 300 tickets, and then we had probably something similar on guest list, just like friends and family and shit.
Yeah.
Like maybe like, you know, because it's in our hometown, like we've all lived here forever. So yeah, we had like all our girlfriends, friends, family, whatever, invited everyone down. And honestly, we just had the fucking best party ever that day. We shot in like I know if you look at the music video, everyone's just like laughing and smiling, and it's super like not. I know if you look at our other videos, are like a bit more moody and aggressive, which to be honest isn't like who we are as people at all. But that one is like,
well, it's funny that you. Sorry to cut you off, but it's funny that you said that, because like when Brian from Knocked Loose came on, it was like we were talking about you guys, and it was like, oh, like they Malevolence reached out for me to be on the album. It's like, oh, that's the scary band from Europe. It's like in the videos.
I mean, a lot of people think that. Yeah, so the vibe for that video, it was really, really happy, and it completely captures the vibe that day. It was just like the sun was shining. I think this was like one of the first events, like after, you know, COVID, you know, where you could actually have a real party in the UK. So we put a big party on, and we essentially filmed it. We had a real show, like where there's a band called Rough Justice played, and then, which is our drummer's hardcore band, and then another band called Split Knuckle, which is a hardcore band from like Essex and London, which is both of those bands, by the way. And yeah, we had a little crane. We had a crane, which was cool, you know, for like the aerial shots.
Dude, that is the money shot of all those types of videos. The fucking like, oh man. As a videographer, I was like, as soon as I saw the crane, I'm like, that's gonna be it.
It was worth it actually getting the crane, because as soon as I showed the POD video to the guy that directed it, he was like, yeah, they've got a crane, we need a crane, like you have to get one. I was like, okay, yeah, all right, whatever, let's go. Then with the train, it just so happened that there was a train line above there, and the funny thing about the train stopping is it wasn't like a regular train, like people just going from A to B. It was like, I think it was like one of these like old-fashioned ones that, like, you know, like old people have like a day out where they go and have fucking tea and cake. You know what? I'm not even sure what happens in the USA. It looked like one of those Harry Potter trains, right?
Yeah,
where, like,
totally.
Fucking, like people go and have dinner on it, and like, because I was looking at the video, and there's tables with like the lights on, and the light, lamps fixed into the tables,
a little chandelier
and, like,
inside or whatever.
Yeah, little chandeliers, curtains over the windows. I was thinking, I've never been on a train like that. Now, there was a dude that was at the show, and he works in some capacity on the train line.
Okay.
He was saying to me, oh yeah, I know, like, whoever is responsible for that train, I'm going to try and find the videos of what people took from the train, like, over the show. So I've been onto him about that, but nothing ever surfaced, unfortunately. So that's how that happened, and it just so happened that it pulled up in like one of the biggest breakdowns in our set, and like loads of people filmed it and shit. So it was during,
I think the video I saw was during self-supremacy,
the breakdown,
like, screaming, and then just like zooming in, and people just like looking at this train that, like, again, is from like a more civilized time, if you want to call it that. But it was just like like I'm very curious, like were trains just going by, or is there a specific stop there?
So they were going by, but they were going by all day actually. And I said to Dan, who was filming, I was like, yo, you need to get a shot of the train at some point going over. But I think that one, I don't know why it stopped. Now, I don't imagine it would have the power, like the driver would be able to just stop, because where it was just outside the main train station in Sheffield city centre. So I'd imagine there's like, quite a high amount of traffic on those train lines. But a lot of people, like, when they saw that video and at the show, I got messages like, yo, like, was that on purpose? Did you hire the train? Like, oh, how did you get that to happen? And I was like, yo, like, do you think we have the fucking power to like start stopping trains?
we were just surprised we could get a crane for this video, let alone a train stopping.
But I mean, I'm very flattered that anyone would think that like that would be within our reach.
I just imagine it, like, let's say the conductor was the one that actually stopped it. He's like, if you look out on the east side of the train, you might see local band Malevolence tearing it the fuck up. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they definitely got a good show, those passengers. I'm sure they like, what the fuck is going on down there? Like, huge pits. Someone's got a smoke grenade.
I just think like any of those kind of those moments where it's like I think another band in America that did kind of a block party kind of a show similar to you guys was Varials off of a couple albums back, because we had Eric Easterday who directed that on the podcast, and we talked a lot about that. I'm a big fan of his, but I just think any moment that is like an outdoor hardcore thing that like the normies of the world are just like randomly coming by, I just can't imagine what their conversations at their dinner table is like. Like, oh, honey, you won't believe what I saw today on the train. I saw people like jumping and punching each other and smoke grenades, and like it was wild.
I think like the most common thing people think is it's like a fight or a riot or something like that.
Which,
I've
like,
seen that.
Again, it's like people would stop and stare either way. You know, it's like, oh, what's going on? So,
I've seen that Varials video. Actually, I have seen it, and I'm sure that probably come up in conversation, like when we were planning ours, because we were like, has anyone done one of these recently? Like, is it too close? But you know what? Like, I don't think that there's anyone in our scene that can like lay claim to doing a video in that style, because it's one of the most generic like concepts for a music video.
Right.
However, like, I don't care. Like, I'm happy to participate in that cliche. Like, I think they're sick, and I always enjoy them. And that video for me is personally like my favorite Malevolence music video that there is. So
right.
Whatever.
Well, I think like, I think it's the argument of like there's no original ideas, but I'm just a firm believer that's like, as long as you are throwing your own spin on it and you are doing like, and you're not like, it's not a clear copycat, then it's like, like just do your thing and make it the best. I think that's the thing. It's like, if there are no original ideas, just do your shit the best that you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we did put our own spin on it. And I agree with you with music videos. Like, we find it hard to pull out original ideas, to be, like I watched, I think like the Vane videos recently. I don't know if you've seen them, like the from the latest Vane record, and the videos are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the one where they're playing in the house, and I think there's like some kind of like giant baby or like something like that. Like the scissors coming through the window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I was really impressed by that, because like I don't feel like anyone in my band is like creative in that capacity to like think of a concept like that. Now, not saying that would work for Malevolence. Like, I don't really want to be playing in a house with a baby killed, like stabbed through us all. But for them, it was fucking amazing. I was really, really impressed. Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys have done like, I think on the EP, you guys did like a music video like Out in the Rain. Which again, like I do think, there's plenty of bands that have done those, but like I feel like as long as you are doing it your way, have at it.
So I think I don't know if you've seen this video. There's Finn McKenzie.
Yes. You froze on my end for a bit. I'm waiting until you kick back. You mentioned Finn McKenzie.
He is?
Yes.
I think I lost you.
Yeah.
He's done a video, like he's done one of his YouTube videos, and it's like the 5 most generic metalcore music video concepts, something along those lines. And I watched it recently, and I was like, oh shit, like we've done every single one of these.
You're like, I've been called
like I think there's the one in the rain. There's the one in the rain on there. There's like there's one in the rain on there. There's the block party. There's like some Madball style. It made me laugh anyway. Yeah, and so we haven't done any of that shit. Like that's always been off the cards for us. The countryside, the forest. We're never doing. We're never doing the crab core and the orange amps in the forest. Like we'll never do. But yeah, I mean, if you want to do. So if where it's like that style, like it's like some New York hardcore style shit.
Yeah. Like a band that's really popping on the opposite side of the world from where you're at is Speed, and it's like their last few music.
Oh man, I love them.
Like in the camera. It's like
so many outfit changes in those videos. Like I love it. I absolutely love it. Like I'm watching like okay, that singer's had like 12 different outfits on. They're all carefully planned. I know the guy that did that actually. Shout out to him. The saddest day on IG.
Yeah.
But yeah, Speed. I fucking love Speed. We played with them in Sydney, and I didn't really know who they were. Someone just told me, "Oh yeah, this is like the Sydney hardcore band in the super popping," and they opened the show for us. Like I walked in the venue like 5 minutes after doors. The venue was packed. People are fucking killing each other, and I was like, "Oh no, we are about to have the worst show ever." I was like, "Holy shit, we've got to play after. We've got to play right after these guys." Fuck yeah, and we played, and like people didn't really care that much. But shout out to Speed anyway. I love him.
Yeah. Jordan texted me saying, we were just getting a little bit of lag on your end. Do you need to plug in your laptop?
Okay, no, I'm on 65%. Let me just see if I'm on the
yeah. And then we're chilling.
If I'm on the right Wi-Fi. Yeah, you know.
Is someone downloading the new Stranger Things right now? Like,
you know what? There's actually 2 different networks in this building, and I was on the downstairs one, so I'm on the upstairs one right now.
Okay,
so
that will probably help.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's just off of that point. My boss, who also plays in bands, he's always talking about like he loves playing with bands that kind of like make him question like, oh shit, like am I going to be able to play of the same level of this band or even better? So there's always like a little bit of like a competitive nature when you're playing shows, because you want to fucking kill it, and you kind of want to be the talk of the fest, the talk of the show. So like I think that kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit as well.
Absolutely. And also just like the vibe with Speed is very, very, very hardcore, like simple riffs. And like with us, when I see people going the fuck off to that, I'm like, yeah, like we've got like guitar solos in every single song. Like we've got like intricate patterns, intricate drumming. Like maybe this isn't the right place for us to be playing a show, but you know, whatever. Like I was just happy to be at a cool show in Australia, you know, totally. Zero complaints from me.
Since we're on the topic of music videos a little bit, I wanted to talk to you about the Keep Your Distance music video and song, because I thought it was funny because you guys dropped that. You know, I'm sure you wrote that song well at the end of like 2019, and you know, we're shooting it while you're on that Knock Loose tour, and then you put it out like I think like February of 2020. And then the pandemic hits, and then social distancing is like the buzzword for multiple months. So like, I'm kind of curious if that song popped off a little bit more because of that. Like, because obviously, like you guys had no idea, but I'm sure that song just kind of memed itself a little bit.
Yeah, we got really, really, really lucky with that. Like that came out like the moment fucking like pandemia hit in the UK.
Totally.
And I've got a funny story because we. In the UK, right? I don't know if it's the same in the States, but on the motorways, like the highways, there's signs quite frequently, like big billboards, and they say keep your distance on them, right? You know, just to like make sure cars aren't too close to each other.
Right. Yeah.
So we knew that there was like a bunch of them close to Sheffield, and we were like, shit, like we need like a banging IG post for when this single drops, you know, like something funny to post with it. So we got in the car and we were like, yeah, let's drive to the closest keep your distance sign so we can take a photo.
Like Malevolence underneath it. Dude, that's so funny.
We posed underneath it. Like you can, it's still on our Instagram. If you scroll down, like you can find it. So, and anyway, we couldn't find one, and we ended up driving so like fucking 1 hour 30 out of Sheffield, like looking for one, looking at every sign, like shit, is it that one? No. We drove for ages and ages and ages. Anyway, we got the photo. Literally 2 weeks later, it said keep your distance in every fucking supermarket, in anywhere you could possibly go.
Like, I just go down to the corner store and there'd be 4 options there.
We were like, fuck, we spent a whole day trying to find that spot to take the photo, and now it's fucking everywhere. But yeah, man, we got very, very lucky with that being a pandemic catchphrase.
Right.
I think it's our big. So
yeah. It was just like, again, the serendipity of that. Like, you couldn't even write that for like a TV show.
Nah. Yeah, sick actually.
So a couple other questions, Wilkie, as we're kind of heading towards a close. So you know, like we mentioned kind of at the top, like Malevolence has just been hitting all these like new ceilings and new milestones. I'm curious if there's any milestones that for you as a member of this band, because I'm sure everyone's got their own personal one, but what kind of milestone are you still waiting to hit when it comes to Malevolence?
I never, ever, ever want to fly from Manchester Airport in the UK ever again. Like that's one of my long-term goals in music right now.
Oh, okay.
If we could get our band to the point where we just had to never ever go to Manchester Airport, I'd be very grateful because it's absolutely fucking terrible. So I'm not sure if
it's just like chaotic out the wazoo.
Yeah. I mean, you just can't sit down. You can't get a bottle of water. You can't get any food. It's chaos there at the moment. So that's my current milestone that I've set over the last couple of weeks because we've just done a bunch of shows and been fucking like flying out quite a lot. So if I could get my band to that point, that'd be brilliant. Other than that, no. Other than that, I don't really think I have any like. Honestly, the ones growing up, I always wanted to play Download Festival. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like the big rock festival in the UK where they have like Metallica and all of that shit. I always wanted to play that, which like we've played 3 times now, and I'm about to play for the 4th time this next weekend. So I kind of feel like I've achieved everything where I want, like that I want to achieve. Honestly, if we could just like sustain this shit for like 20 years, that would be amazing. I know, yeah, if we, you know, lucky enough to sustain the shit for 20 years, I'd be very, very grateful because that's a lot easier said than done.
Totally.
You know, if we could just maintain the level we're at, which is, honestly, a lot of the things we get to do really, really regularly, I can't even believe we just flew out to Malta and did Bring Me the Horizons Festival on fucking tropical island. You know, there's boat parties, pool party. Like it was like the coolest festival ever. And I was just there like, yeah, like this is it for me. Like this is the best shit. This is like literally last week. I was like, yeah, this is the best shit I've ever been to in my entire life. Like as in a band anyway. So
yeah, I want to quickly plug my friend Alan. He's a creative content band person like myself. He's been recently running with the Beartooth guys. So just seeing his Instagram story, I'm just like, is this like a European beach party or a music festival? And then it's like, oh, it's both. I'm like, damn, okay.
It was fucking insane. And I met the Beartooth guys that weekend actually. Yeah. So honestly, I'm very, very grateful for everything we have. I never thought we'd get to the point where we are now. Like I say, like many of my favorite bands for many years, like I don't think I don't know. I feel like I've got to do all the shit that they did now. So I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be where I'm at.
Yeah. And honestly, it's like, it's super awesome to hear how humble and grateful you are for this whole thing, because I think I've seen it with bands as they've grown. It's like they've become harder to reach, almost like a caricature of themselves. And it's like they don't remember the people that helped get them there at the first place. So it's like, it's really cool to be able to talk to people who are like, even if this all ended tomorrow, like if it just imploded, like I would still feel like I did the absolute best, you know, things of my life through my music projects. And, you know, I'm just grateful for the journey. So that's very evident from you, Wilkie, for sure.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. I'm always like quite conscious that I come off too arrogant on these things. Because like I can like talk about myself forever, but yeah, thank you.
Well, you know, it's the point of having you on the podcast. I want to talk to you about, you know, what you're up to. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So talk to me about the new record, Malicious Intent. So something that's interesting when I was listening to the downbeat is like you guys are like a very DIY band and, you know, have done a lot of those, you know, pressings yourself in addition to the stuff with Nuclear Blast. So like, yeah, just talk to me about like how much, like, is that more of a control thing of the band? Like we want to make sure that if we're giving a product to people, we want to not have it messed up by someone else. And talk to me about the relation to Nuclear Blast as well.
Honestly, where we were at, we self-released The Other Side on MLV our own label, and honestly it went really, really, really well for us. Like the band grew loads with that record. So we were like, hold on, like fuck having a label. Like we've just done this ourselves and it's been the most success we've ever had with a release. So like we're gonna do it. And that was the game plan for the vast majority of creating the album. Like we paid for the studio, we started doing the videos, we did most of the videos, and then we had a really good festival summer last year, and we just had a bunch of labels come they were interested, just like opening conversations. And we just, to be honest with you, bro, we just didn't care. I had to be really convinced to sign to Nuclear. I didn't even want to sign to Nuclear Blast, to be honest. Now, not to disrespect those guys, because I'm very glad that we did do that, totally. And they've been brilliant. But I was like a little bit hesitant because of like things we've had in the past and the position we were in. So when it came to negotiating that, because I needed to be won over, well, we needed to be won over. We kind of we wanted to do the deal on our own terms, and one of our terms was, I want to do my own pressing in the UK, and I want people to be buying it from our store that we run like physically in this building. Like I want that to be a thing, and I don't really want to give it away. And that was one of my terms, and they were fine with it. Now, it does kind of make sense because Nuclear Blast out in Europe, they're based in Germany, and I don't want people to be ordering, people in the UK to have to order their shit from Germany or order it from, or otherwise they'd have to order it from like HMV, which is like the main CD store here. I don't know what you guys have. Yeah, Best Buy or something.
Yeah, we do have Best Buy, but there are some HMVs that exist out here too.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, the alternative would have been that people in the UK would have either had to order from Germany and pay like custom charges on it and shit, or they'd have to go to a smaller record store or HMV. And I wanted to have our own shit here in the UK.
As someone that lives in North America, and my favorite European band is Guilt Trip. I just had Jacob, their vocalist, just a couple episodes ago, and anytime they would drop merch, I would be like super excited. I hit to checkout. I'm like, the shipping for this shirt is like more than the shirt itself.
Yeah,
and it's just, that's the name of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think they should get some shit set up in the USA, like Cold Cuts or something. Yeah. Surely. Yeah. That was our reasoning behind the vinyl. Also, we want to do our own pressings. We want to make them cool. We want to sell them. All of that, really. Yeah. Fairly simple answer.
Yeah, but I think the thing that ties back to one of the first things that we talked about is that, like, I think bands early in their career are like they're chasing the ideal thing. They're like, oh, we need to do this, so we'll take any deal. Like, we need to be on this label, so we'll take anything that we can get because we want our music to get out there. But there's clear examples where it's like, if you stay in your lane and you do your thing, the right people will come to you. And whether that's like festivals asking you to play, labels being like, hey, we want to offer you something, but we also like are open because like we really believe in what the band is doing and all those things. Like, it's very apparent to like just do your shit well and the right people will come. And if you're not doing it well, no one will come. And that's just kind of it.
And that was kind of the angle that Nuclear Blast came from. They were just like, look, we want to work with you, and like we are just down to work with you in whatever capacity that may be, like however it works with your system that you have. We just want to be involved and help. And so, that essentially, which is why we signed with them. And honestly, they're doing that, I think, a lot more than Nuclear Blast in particular are doing that a lot more than people realize. Like, I've seen some smaller labels, and I'm not going to say any names, but some smaller bands where I start seeing the music videos and I'm like, yeah, like that, like this looks like it's got a big budget or whatever. And then like you scroll down like on the YouTube, and then in the bottom somewhere it just says like one line text, in partnership with Nuclear Blast. And so I think that they're involved with more bands than you think. Like, and often because of the way people want to be perceived now, they don't want to like be signed screaming like, yeah, we've signed to Nuclear Blast. They're just like on a smaller label, and then Nuclear Blast will like come and jump in with the smaller label and help them release it and have some kind of stake in it, which is sick, really. I think I really admire what they're doing. Like they're trying to cover all bases in extreme music, like small, medium, large, like literally all of it. Just sick.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think like there's something to be said about just like I feel like just with how the music industry is right now, it's like labels can get a bad rap. So it's like almost more important for labels to go the extra mile for artists and even like people that they don't even like have on their roster. You know, like
Yeah.
I have a really great relationship with the people over at Flat Spot
Yeah.
through like a multitude of things of them. You know, like we talked about Speed earlier. I remember Flatspot hit me up to interview them. This is before they kind of had their explosion with We See You. But like I listened to the band and I was about it. Jim and I had a great chat, and then it's like now like there's that that trio connection between myself, the label, and this. You know, like I've been hit up, and now I'm getting hit up for the podcast from like PR people asking, hey, can we have Michael from Volumes come on? And I'm like, truthfully, I haven't listened to Volumes like actively in like since Via, like one of their first records, but like we had a great chat, and I feel like that's kind of where this podcast is going now, where it's like I can hit up homies like you or like people that I have go to shows with, but now we're also looked at as like just a media like place where people can do that. And sorry, I'm talking a little bit about too much about my own podcast here, but a lot of people hit me up now and they're like, and they're only thinking about like what benefits them. And I think a big thing about this podcast for me is like being very critical of the curation of my guests and like who I'm having on and why, because I think it's very apparent when it's like someone is on a podcast and I feel like here's the standardized like press kit that you were given and you're talking about, and it's like I'm more concerned about the people and the details about the band versus like what how was the recording process of Malicious Intent. Like those questions to me just seem very easy and hollow, and I just want to like have it be more of like if we were just in the room chatting. If I was at Malevolence HQ, this is how I feel like this conversation would be.
It would be, absolutely. And this does feel very natural, and also like you do seem like you know what you're talking about as well, like you've done a fair amount of homework, or you've been aware of what we're doing for a little while. So I appreciate that very much, and it does go a long way in a podcast. Like very occasionally I don't really do much like media like talking like this at all, but occasionally you do something and like it's very, very obvious that they have absolutely no idea you are. And like someone from the labels just sent an email out and some random person's been like, yep, I'll do it. Like I actually did one 2 weeks ago. And it was like an interview thing, like a Zoom interview. Sat down, the first question's like, what do you think the difference is between religion and spirituality? I was like, well, like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then the second...
This is not what I signed up for or thought this was going to go.
The second one was like, do you think that Elon Musk is gonna meet aliens? I need like 30 seconds on this. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I think I just told him he couldn't put it out, like they couldn't release it because I it was just like silly, really.
Right.
A bit of a waste of time. It was like a German industrial dance fucking blog, and like they had quite a lot of followers, but I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna benefit either of us, me being on here.
So I think, this is for the few maybe interviewers who are like listening to this. I would say that like if your niche is like the super obscure random questions that you think you would never be asked, like I feel like you just need to own that. But I feel like at the same time you need to preface that to the guests like, hey, I'm having you on. We're not a music like we're a music podcast that also does this. So I feel like it's something that I always have to keep in check too, because when I ask people to come on, some people don't like. Most times people are like, oh yeah, I got my beverage ready to go. Some people don't know. Some people don't know that we do a video version. And for me, again, I like to ask things about the person. So it's always like a game of chess for me as the host to kind of know like how deep can this conversation go, and I kind of lean on you as the guest to kind of like give me cues, and then I can kind of go deeper into that. I can tell that you do that, and it's good and it's smooth. But absolutely, like you need to brief someone if you're gonna ask them all that shit. Yeah, dude. If you're like, yo, what is What are your thoughts on Area 51? And
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah, and honestly,
I play bass and make merch.
Yeah, like no one cares about me hearing that shit. Like I'm not a fucking celebrity, like maybe if it was Adele or fucking Will Smith, someone wants to hear the thoughts on something stupid and just listen to them speak. Absolutely no one on planet Earth cares about me talking about something.
I just did a podcast with Jesse from Stick to Your Guns, and it was very interesting because like he's done loads and loads of interviews, and when I was looking for a little clip for the beginning of the episode, because I had like a little like funny little excerpt, and I never normally like include something from the band. It might just be something like, from where they're based, or just some kind of meme that we talked about. For this episode I might pull up the fucking like Harry Potter train and just have a funny clip from that. But for Jesse, we talked a lot about dogs at one point, and there's an Empiricon. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Empiricon. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a series when I was like first getting into music where it was like a this or that, like,
Yes, I've seen this.
Yeah. So there's like a clip of him from an interview where it was like dog or cat, and he's like dog, 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 dog. And I was like, that's very connected to the episode, and I put that in. But again, it's like, if the purpose of that interview is like, hey, this is what we're doing, and then the guest is like, oh, okay. So it's, for all the interviewers out there, like, if you have a very obscure show, just like make sure your guest knows what they're getting into. If they're just like, I'm coming on to talk about my band and what I do, then have at it. Yeah.
I think a lot of the really, really terrible ones I've had have been at like the bigger, more commercial festivals. And I think that a lot of people, they just pull it to get like free entrance to the festival.
Oh,
they're like,
dude, totally.
I need a media pass, and like I'm going to interview XYZ. And then you turn up, they literally like have no idea like who you are, what band you're in, and they ask you some stupid questions, and then like no one ever watches it.
So do you know Shane Told from the band Silverstein?
No, I don't.
Yeah, you know of the band Silverstein though.
Yeah,
right?
I know Silverstein.
So Shane was on. So Johnny Christ, who plays bass for Avenged Sevenfold, has a podcast, and Shane was on it, and they were talking about like bad interviews. And Shane said that it was at like a Warped Tour, some kind of festival that is like, anyone can kind of get in. So this is more on like the people that are like giving out these passes for media.
Yeah.
But Shane said he was being interviewed, and he looked down, and like she didn't have a recorder like going, or she wasn't taking notes. And then like third question in, he's like, so like, what are we doing here? Like, how are you, gonna put this out? And she's like, oh, I'll remember it.
Oh.
I'm like, I have your podcast and one right after. If I was not recording and I was typing this out, like, there's no way I would cover everything.
Yeah. What a load of shit.
Unless she's fucking like, her superpower is like insane memory, which like, some people do have that, like, but there's no way that you remember even a half an hour conversation and you can transcribe it word by word.
That's a bad one. I haven't heard of one that bad. I think like one of the worst ones I've had was like, what's your favorite color of the alphabet? And then at that point,
color of the alphabet?
Yeah. Like I think it was supposed to be like some funny, like quirky joke, and at that point we were like, not really sure if we want to do it. Or like,
I know that I am really fucking up if and when I ever have someone walk out, or like in this case, just like exit out of Zoom on a podcast. Like,
well, really, have you ever had that happen?
I've never had that happen. I know that if that ever happens, knock on wood, that I'm like, all right, Jordan, I think we have to take a 5 off the podcast for like a week or something.
Sometimes, like, I think when I watch stuff, like not particularly in like our world, like heavy music or anything, but like particularly in like rap stuff, they often ask really, really, really tough questions, or like they'll like find a piece of drama or whatever that's happened and be like, go straight for it and pick on it and stuff. And it's not necessarily like ethical, but it can make for entertaining content. Like, what is it? The Breakfast Club they have in New York. I don't know. Do you know that show?
Yeah. I know exactly.
Called Charlemagne. He's vicious. He's absolutely vicious.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
which I think builds up, like you said, it builds up fans to that. It creates good stuff. and there's a reputation that's established. It's like, oh, if
Yeah.
you're going on the Breakfast Club, Charlamagne's gonna like,
He's gonna grill
ask you
you,
about
yeah.
this beef that you have with so and so.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I think I watched him interview Ed Sheeran, and it was brilliant. And he does ask some tough questions, but I mean, they are often the most interesting answers.
Totally.
Like, do you ever do that? Do you ever do anything like that?
So it's tough, I think, with hardcore, because I think that there's a lot of scene politics, and
Yeah.
I walk the line of like wanting just to have a really wholesome conversation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I'm having someone on that I already have like a personal relationship with, like, and you like Brendan from Counterparts as an example, I could ask that man anything and he's down to talk about whatever. He's been on the show 2 times at this point. We're already talking about the third time he's going to come on. But I feel like when this is the first time that you and I are speaking, and I know that the flow is well, but I'm not going to just like hit you with like a super like
Personal.
Unless we were going to a certain area, then it's like, okay, maybe I can push here a little bit. But I feel like just coming out of left field is not my personal vibe. And I think it's too risky with how, like, I feel like I know the level of responsibility with having this platform that I do, and I just don't want to do anything that is just for like more about like the numbers or the drama versus like, is this actually making for a good conversation?
A good conversation. And you don't, like I said, you're not trying to like get big numbers, and you're not trying to be the fucking hardcore TMZ and like talk about all the drama and gossip and all that shit. Because let's be honest, that is like the worst part of the scene by a good stretch, in my opinion. And it does, like, I don't want to upset anyone here, but I'm quite removed from the US hardcore scene. Like, I have friends, particularly in bands, but like, I go on Twitter and there's so much drama, bro. Like, it's insane. So much gossiping, so much beef. Like, I don't want to see that shit, like, ever. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And like, I find I'm like, you can do on Twitter, like, not interested in it. Like, and I still, I'm seeing fucking call outs and beef nonstop and all of that shit. So yeah.
It's very hard because it's like, for a long time, I was like, Twitter is not a place that I want Scope to exist.
Yeah.
Purely because of that, because it felt toxic. It felt gross. I didn't feel like I just didn't want to be sucked into that cyclone. I have done a little bit as far as just posting like different bigger podcasts that come on. And I do see like that does drive a lot of traffic. It does like, the opportunity for like something to really go viral on Twitter versus like something like Instagram is like, there is a stark difference. Because like, it's so easy to reshare things versus like, I got to put on my story, and it's a whole thing. So it's like, I can't ignore that it does have influence. And I also think that like Twitter is not the problem. It's the people who use Twitter that are the problem, because every social media, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but I've said this multiple times. Every social media is just like a silo, and like we as people fill those social networks. So it's like, it's not, there's a bit of blame that falls on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, as far as how they're setting up their technologies with distribution. But they would literally be nothing without the people that are signing up and using it every day. Yeah.
And like, let's be real, like, drama is interesting whether you like it or not. Like I see drama, and I've just told you, I like try and hide it and stuff, but like, I'm interested for the first 20 seconds. You can't help it. I'm like, oh, I think I like kind of know that guy, and like, he's saying this shit about this other person. I like kind of know, and like, I don't what they call it, negativity bias, where as humans, we're just immediately attracted to bullshit. So and that's why it gets pushed on those platforms. But I think that's kind of like maybe an underlying goal of mine with this podcast, is to try to have it be more positive and like something that people can take away from, versus like, oh, did you tune into the latest Scoped Exposure? Like, there's some tea that's spilled. Like, that is not the goal of mine. And again, it's more, I'm leaving it. My strategy now is just leaving it more on the guest with how they're kind of taking things. Like, I've had people in bands who have been in past projects that had another member canceled, and
when I was like starting out the show, it's like, should I ask them about that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, like I feel like that's intrusive for me to do. I'll still get comments on those podcasts being like, I can't believe you didn't ask them about so and so. It's like, well, you spend one day in my shoes doing a podcast and you'll get it. But like, you know, it's just the way it is. Well, Wilkie, we're kind of getting towards the end. I have one more question before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
So any way that we end the podcast is always with a favorite mosh related story that you would like to end on. That's anything that first comes to your mind. Could be you, could be something that happened to you, something at a Malevolence show, something totally random. Whatever's first to your head is how we start to wrap up.
Well, seeing quite a lot of wild shit. I once saw a guy get his dick sucked in the pit.
What?
Like, yeah, and it was like by his friend as well, which was like another dude, and like,
whoa. Back up. I need to know who's playing while this is happening.
This is Ypres in Belgium.
Okay.
In 2012, and it was in the daytime to Black Dahlia murder. Rest in peace, Trevor. So, like, it wasn't like a real blowjob. It was just like putting it in his mouth for like fun thing. And like, what? Like, I'm fairly certain like they weren't. I'm fairly certain they weren't gay. They were just like drunk Belgians, just like getting wild. And like one of them was like dressed in women's clothes, but like I say, I don't think he was a trans person. I think he was just like, you know, having a wild day out at a festival. And a guy got his
that friend that takes things too far. Where it's like, hold on. Dick, and he's like, okay.
One guy got his dick out, and the other guy just like got on his knees and put it in his mouth for a moment, and it was flaccid. But yeah, that was pretty wild, and like not even many people saw it. Like I think now, like if that was to happen, it'd be like, oh my god, like it'd be on fucking Twitter, like yeah, guy got his dick sucked to Black Dahlia murder. But I don't think
that is so crazy.
I don't think many people even saw it happen. Like I was there with a couple of my friends, and we definitely saw it, but it wasn't. I never heard.
Was it like you looked over and you just saw it happen, or like was it very
they were getting wild. They were running around in the pit for the whole show. And we were like, well, yeah, that's pretty wild, but. So that's a funny one.
That is funny.
I'm not really sure if I should have mentioned it. But yeah,
I would be very surprised if the guy who got his dick sucked at a Black Dahlia murder concert was listening to this podcast. But
I would be very surprised as well, to be honest with you. Like I say, it wasn't. Maybe dick sucked was like maybe like that's too much of a exaggeration. It just like went in his mouth for a brief moment.
There was a singular sucking.
Yeah, maybe. That's the wildest thing. And like I say, that was just the first thing that popped into my head when you mentioned it. But like, there's that viral video photo of a guy pissing in his mouth at a trash talk show in Australia. I don't know if you remember that. That did resurface on my social media like in the last week, which just made me think of that, which is weird as fuck.
Yeah. Well, man, there is some wild like. That so the first story reminded me of, you know, we brought up Varials a little bit earlier as far as their music video. How I found out about that band is it was like at their record release show for like one of their first records, and someone was moshing, like they're like a beatdown centric band as well, and someone was like crowd killing people like butt ass naked, and it like went all over the internet. And
Hold on,
this band's awesome.
I've seen that video, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And then your second story with the person pissing in someone's mouth reminded me.
It was his own mouth. It was literally, there's a photo of it.
Of his own mouth?
He stood there like bent over, like pissing in his own mouth. It's
man.
Very, very, very peculiar.
Anyone who's made it at this far in the episode, we saved all like the vile stories.
Yeah.
Right at the end.
I don't normally indulge in the vile stuff either, but
it's first to your head, and that's the rule. So I appreciate you sticking to the script there. Well, Wilkie, all of your links, the band links, all that good stuff will be in the show notes and the description of the video. But if there's any final words, anyone you want to shout out, or anything you want to send the people off before we wrap up. the floor is yours.
Please, if you've listened to the podcast this far, go and check out our new record, Malicious Intent. We worked really, really hard on it. We're touring the USA with the Acacia Strain. We'll leave for the USA this month. And it's like the East Coast and the Midwest for like 20 shows. So yeah, if you're listening, please go and check out the tour and check out the record. Thank you very much for having me, Spencer.
Absolutely, Wilkie. Definitely think that we could do this for another hour if we really wanted to.
Yeah,
but shout out to Malevolence HQ. Shout out to just Malevolence Riff. And dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely, no problem at all. I've had a really nice time, actually. Thank you.